I've got dry fruits, and I believe the famous food here is the samosas, which I don't see for me.
Once we have a political podcast with you, then we'll get the samosas.
Oh, good one.
With whom did you vibe very well on the sets?
Saif, Amir, Shah Rukh, Ajay. I grew to like Salman later. It was a process. At the time of Hum Saath Saath Hain, we were not best of friends.
What happened?
There are two sides to Salman. You can either love him or you will hate him.
Did people think that you're a very boring person?
It's okay to be boring, but I'm not giving you this headline.
You've also done the Michael Jackson Tika.
I think it was Sharmila, Raj's wife. She got in touch and we said, okay, let's do it. So I did it because I was getting these tickets, take my friends and go to the show.
That video went viral recently where you turned and looked at Raj. 20 years ago, he had a crush on Sonali. And
Did he?
Like,
I doubt it. That when I spoke and I called, I was talking to my sister who was right there.
Are you a political person?
I think you need a lot of very thick skin for it, and which I don't have.
When you were detected with cancer, it was stage 4.
Since the time humanity has been there, cancer has been there, and why don't we talk about it? And then you realize there's a taboo. People don't want to talk about it.
Idea 23, which is create a bucket list.
So, I've never told this to anybody. I don't think my husband knows this too. But
one film which would define Sonali Bendre.
That film hasn't happened yet.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. My guest today is Sonali Bendre, the most beautiful and effervescent actor of the Bombay film industry. Welcome to the show, Sonali. It's been great talking to you off camera. So now I'm on camera and talking to one of the most beautiful actresses of our times. But today it's not just about her body of work in the film industry. It's about this book that we want to talk about. It's been lovely reading about this, Sonali. It's such a quick read.
Yes.
And it's something that I wish I had when I was raising my children, as I did it instinctively to read to my children. And I'm somebody who grew up with books, so totally empathize, totally understand with when you write about why you wrote this. But I leave it to you to explain to our readers as to why you wrote this book and how did the idea germinate.
First of all, Smita, thank you for having me. And before I start on the book, I want to know that I've got dry fruits, and I believe the famous food here is the samosas, which I don't see for me. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, once we have a political podcast with you, then we'll get the samosas.
Oh, good one.
So, today's the academic one. The academic Sonali.
Okay, so that means with books you get
dry nutritious
fruits.
dry fruit. Food for the brain.
Yeah, food for the brain. Okay. No, but yeah, a book of books is that, recommending books, and actually I would say it's an extension to my book club. I run a book club. It's 8 years old now, and it's one of it's one of the biggest digital book clubs in South Asia. And when I started it 8 years ago, there were really not book clubs happening or discussions on books happening, and so it was a great little community where we read books, we discuss them, and the book club started as when I got onto social media, I realized it was a great tool, and how do I use it well? And because of my bringing up the child, and you know how it is when you're doing all of that and that hustle and bustle, I'd lost touch with reading. I was missing it, wanted to get back to it. So decided to start the book club so that I would read. Now, the recommendations that we've been doing with the book club was the idea that HarperCollins came with and said that, you know what, they've been telling me that you should write. And I said, you know what, I'm done with writing. I don't think I'm an amazing writer. I understand what my limitations are. And not in the phase where I can write right now. So they said, but you do so many recommendations. And, what if it was a book about recommendations? I said, a book about books, and that's how the name came, a book of books. And
nice.
We just wrote about all the recommendations that we could actually give and to get people to read more.
So you talk about the book club. I have this little anecdote to tell you that when I was very young, I was in a book club, and I'm talking about, like probably in the 70s or something, when it wasn't a thing to do. But anyway, there was somebody said that you have to come in the book club and all. And my parents put me in this book club in the neighborhood. And I went in and I didn't know what the rules were. Nobody explained to me. There was no WhatsApp, there was no Google to understand
There were
what it
rules
was.
for a book club?
Yeah, in the sense that they would recommend a book club and they'd call on the landline. There were no cell phones. I'm talking about like real dinosaur era.
Right.
And I say, ye wali kitab padhni hai. Like you have to read this. And, I was in school and you had so much of reading to do, schoolwork. And I used to read whatever was available.
Right.
I didn't have this, we didn't have the money to go and buy a book
Right.
because I wanted to read it.
Correct.
You rented it from the library or you read whatever was lying around.
Lying around, what had come for your siblings.
And things, you know,
Yeah.
right? So that's how it was. So I didn't know what the rules were. Ki you have to read this book. Acha nahi hai to kya hua? I thought you go to a book club and you discuss whatever. I didn't know that that was the book of the week or whatever.
Right.
So I went there and there was this circle and everybody was talking about this one book that they had read and what they thought about the actor. So I was like dying. I said, ab meri bari aayegi. I won't know what to say. And sure enough, it came and I said, I haven't read the book. And everybody said, oh my God, they did that and they shamed me. And Sonali, I've never joined a book club after that.
Oh my God, you need to be on Sonali's book club.
And I'm a voracious reader. And I read like cover to cover and I make notes on the side and I go
That's the
back.
best part of reading.
Yeah. So I have like all the books in my house. I don't like to dog ear them.
Yeah.
So even when there were no post-its available, I used to put little notes. I would put bits of newspaper in there.
But tell me, when you go back to those books that you had read, maybe like some 10 years back or whatever, and now when you see what the notes that you've made,
I feel so silly. I was like, ye kya likh diya?
it's like a diary.
But that's why I never share my books. In your book, you've
Yeah.
written about share your book.
Yeah.
But
But if they don't return it also, I hate sharing
Yeah.
it. I agree with it. I'm trying to be generous, but even I find it very difficult to share books.
I don't
In fact,
share
it's
because
a
of
very
the
funny
notings I've
incident.
written.
For me, yeah, exactly. You know what happened was that on the sets also, I was always reading and I had some book and I would make these notes. And I was on a busy set and I think it was in the south of India that I was shooting and that book got stolen from the set. And I used to write on it. And I was just heartbroken because you're so vulnerable when you're marking. It's just
Marking.
about how you're thinking. And I don't know, maybe, but after that, I just stopped writing in the sides of the book.
But did people think that you're a very boring person jo reading karti hai?
They still think that.
Yeah?
I'm not controversial enough.
That you don't... So,
Not just because I read, but generally in life.
But you were an actor when there weren't vans that people went off
Yeah,
to their van.
yeah.
There would the chair and
a fan.
and a fan. And you sat with a book?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you didn't get into many controversies. That's true.
See, that's the thing, yeah.
So you
So
wouldn't-
today we talk about clickbaits, but at that time it was the headlines.
Yeah.
And you don't give good enough headlines, so then that means,
You were
that'll-
okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a quick learner, so I didn't know it. So initially a few headlines did happen and then I learned, oh my God, this is not what I am, but this is what I'm being portrayed to be. But that's the beauty about social media, while there are so many things that are not good about it, for me, it was more like there was nobody forming an opinion and coloring my view over there. Because, for me, between me and my fans, you're doing movies and otherwise there was always a journalist's opinion. I mean,
Yeah. That's true.
I don't
I
mean
understand.
it.
I totally
But
get
there
it.
have been certain experiences that have always held me a bit like, do I trust this person? Because it's so colored by, oh, you made me wait. Oh, you didn't call me for a party, so I'm going to write this about you. Things like that, So, which you didn't expect. But I learned soon and I realized that it's okay to be boring, but I'm not giving you this headline. So, yeah, I learned soon.
So who are the other readers? I know Kajal also reads
Yes,
quite a book.
Kajal reads Saif. Saif is a very,
Saif
very
is-
good
yeah,
reader.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, when I was working with Saif, his recommendations always enjoyed them tremendously.
Okay, I'm going to read out.
I think Ajay
certain-
also reads.
Ajay also?
Yeah,
Okay.
Ajay also reads.
So there are...
And of course, Shah Rukh.
Yeah. So I'm going to read just some of the things recommendations which I found very interesting. I mean, lots of them I did. But one thing which was very interesting was, which my dad taught me that, and I taught this to my kids, allocate a time for reading. I like this recommendation because in today's world where everybody's just scrolling,
Yeah.
they don't allocate time for scrolling, for social media,
Really?
or for TV, but they allocating time for reading is a must. Why?
Because, like I said, that anything that's a good habit needs discipline to it, and allocating a time is giving discipline, and that's what is needed also. For me, I find early mornings a good time to read when I'm not so distracted. I got into the habit of reading in that early morning before the world wakes up was because it was before, people were awake, so you could have conversations with them, and the kind of activity started and where you could interact with people. So that was a quiet time that I was interested in. Now with, like you said, with scrolling, there is, the internet is on 24/7 and, 365 days, and, you can be picking up and
Do you read in a flight or something? Where do you, morning though, that's your time, you're saying?
And of course, when you're traveling, that was, I think, the best part of flying for me was the fact that now that is also being taken away. There was no phone.
Yeah, no phone.
And you had to read. And I loved that. But now there's Wi-Fi on flights also.
But you also say that सोने से पहले पढ़ लो. It's good for sleep.
Yeah.
Right? De-digitize yourself.
Absolutely.
Doctors also say this.
Yes, they do.
Another
But can
recommendation.
I confess?
Go ahead.
I know it works for a lot of people, but again, when I'm trying to say this, that's why the thing about the book is that there are different tips, and you have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, this worked for me, that's why.
Yeah, because everybody, like for me, if I start reading before sleeping, I don't sleep. Because then I want to finish the book, or I'm so hooked up that I have to put the book down a little earlier because I get too stimulated. So you have to figure that out. It's for people who sleep or find it boring. I don't know what it is, but I can't sleep when I read.
If I pick up a non-fiction before I sleep, I sleep okay.
Okay, yeah.
Because the ideas are not germinating and giving thought to another idea. But if it's a fiction, you want to keep turning the page. फिर क्या हुआ? फिर क्या हुआ? फिर क्या हुआ?
But like, see, now the book that I read, I'm reading also, is that Future of Geography by Tim Marshall.
Okay.
Okay, now it's a non-fiction. It's very heavy, yes, but it does put
It's
ideas
dense.
in your head.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about that also. Even if you're like, okay, I can't read anymore because it's been so heavy, I need to put it aside. But sometimes that happens.
Bedside filled with work?
No, now I have changed that, and I have got different bookshelves for to be reading now, and one day sometime, and these are forever perennial love, things like that.
How
So
interesting.
Yeah.
So you another thing which I found nice is Idea 23, which is create a bucket list.
Yeah.
You have a bucket list?
Of books to read.
I don't have one.
So, okay, I've never told this to anybody. I don't think my husband knows this too. But life is changing, and I'm approaching my life in a different way, in which I really, post my illness, I've been going through a phase where I feel like I want to grow my food. It's like a little bit of OCD probably, but I do want to. So now when I want to grow my food, I want to have a little place where I can grow my food. And in that place there's a carton that's getting filled, because there's going to be a bookshelf in that place where I'm going to grow my food, which are going to be books that I'm going to read in future at some point,
Okay. Let's talk about that period when you were detected with cancer.
Yeah.
It was stage 4.
Yes.
And what did you do then? Like how did you deal with it when you just got to know about it?
I was in denial, and but like when you woke up, I actually would get up in the night and feel that, it was a dream. It probably was a dream, and today it's all changed. And then you woke up and then you realize it was not a dream. Nothing has changed. This is the reality. So I'm a practical person in that sense, and you realize that the faster I accept what is the reality, the better it will be for me to deal with it.
Forget about you accepting it. I don't think the world accepted it.
Yeah.
The first thing that when the news came out was not her.
But even the doctors said that, and they said that because I was going with certain symptoms for the longest time, and it was just not detected at that point.
Would you
and
like
had
to
it
tell
been,
us about that? Symptom? No.
So there are. No, I can't talk about it, but it's not like I blame anybody for it, because, it's a human situation. But definitely I was going with symptoms, and I was saying there is an issue, and it was just I remember the doctor saying that, we thought this was what it was, but how can you get this? And when doctors say, how can you get cancer? You feel like, yeah, I mean, nobody's talking about it. And this was 2018. And today we are in 2025. And the conversation about cancer has changed drastically.
Yeah.
And I think that was me talking about it has been a huge point in changing that conversation. Because what I realized in 2018 was that doctors who deal with cancer would say things like, how could you get it? You have a healthy lifestyle and you eat well. And you realize that that's not the only reason why you get it. It can be genetic, it can be external aggressors, but it can be genetic also. And there are multiple reasons why it happens. Then also when I posted about it and I said that, okay, this is what has happened to me and I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'm going to take a break and go into... The response that I got from people and what I realized from that response was that people from all stratas of society, from various towns to cities to villages, from across age groups, genre, genders, everybody had some story. And I said, my God, if so many people go through it, why did I not know about it?
Yeah.
And when you read and I've been a working girl all my life. So, you feel like I know what I'm talking about. And suddenly it hits you that something as simple as this, I mean, not the disease, but the fact that this is such a, it's been there since medieval ages. I mean, since the time humanity has been there, cancer has been there. And why don't we talk about it? And then you realize there's a taboo. People don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Now, why they don't want
Even
to
now
raise
they say C. The
Yeah.
C.
Yeah.
Won't say cancer because it just...
I also feel there are various reasons why they don't talk about it. And I feel like, that's a whole different conversation. It's my thought process as to, I feel that sometimes people don't want to talk about it because it can be genetic. And then, especially in our society, then it comes into, is family mein ye hai, shadi honi hai. I could, from the conversations I was hearing and the replies that I was getting, where people are anonymous when they write to you on
Yeah.
your various things, this is what I was understanding. And right or wrong, that's the reality of the society and that's what it is. And that's when I decided that I need to talk about it. And because when you're a known face, then there are certain things that are a plus that you get. Like I get to write a book because
Yeah.
you're a known face, and maybe somebody else who had this idea might not have got the opportunity, but I did. In the same way, I thought that this was where I needed to come in, and maybe this is what the purpose should be. And that's when I started talking about it and posting about it. And I was accused of wanting publicity and all of that, but that was not the reason for it. And I decided I would be as truthful as I could be without being
Melodramatic.
sad about it, because I didn't want to go down that. I was going through my healing. I would talk about my journey, and I wanted to be positive about it.
But healing is the second part. The first is to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then come... We had Manisha Koirala on the podcast, and she spoke about her battle with cancer.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how she rediscovered her family
Yeah.
during that time. Because, when you're working,
Yeah.
you kind of take your parents for granted because they're helpful, not in a negative way. What I
Yeah.
mean to say is everybody gets busy, right?
Right.
So your parents are around, but they're around.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they're there. But she says when she walked in and there was slim chance of survival, and she saw in her parents' eyes, in her mom's eyes, when she saw that look,
Yeah.
and she says there was no way she could have got out of that situation that she was in if her parents didn't
Weren't
give her
there.
the support, if they
Yeah.
didn't give her the support. And she says she totally relied on that. For you, it was your husband and your son who were there with you.
Also my sisters were
and
there.
your
My
sister.
sisters-in-law were there. I mean, I've had a huge family support system from both my sides of the family.
So talk about that.
But for me,
because-
family was always the priority. It was never that, yes, as a teenager to growing, and as you grow older, we all go through the phases where, we grow up looking at our parents, we put them on pedestal, we hero worship them. And then you come to a time when you learn, as you grow older, you realize that anybody you put on pedestal is going to fall off the pedestal at some point. And then you realize that, it was not really like this. And then you grow to love them in a different way. And that's a journey that everybody goes through.
Correct.
So, but I did go through that journey, but I wouldn't say that because of this I appreciate. For me, that was always a part of my support system and my upbringing and all of that. But for me, like I said, understanding and being grateful for the fact that I didn't know I was so loved. That is the short way and the precise way to put it. I really didn't know that I was so loved. And it was humbling to understand how much love I got from people whom I'll probably never meet in my lifetime also. But they have sent messages, they have prayed for you, and that means for your friends and family, of course, but totally people unknown. And I think that also brings me to my career, where I never knew I was so popular, because there's something that I realized was that there is a popularity that is in the industry and there is a popularity that is not in the
Among the
industry.
people, yes.
And I realized that I had that popularity. My popularity was amongst the people, and I really didn't know how much of that was.
Which, I've always seen that when people write about you in social media, I'm not even going to go into critics and all that. I mean, you always got critic praise in the sense that
Oh, I
that
never
you
got
shone.
critic praise.
No, people did say that you shone. That you, whatever the role was,
Yeah.
that you did well. I mean, come on, you've acted opposite Saif Ali Khan, Amir Khan, Salman Khan, Sanjay Dutt. I mean, I can name.
I mean,
so
yes,
many
I have acted opposite a lot of big stars and
Yeah.
actors, no doubt about it. But for me, that was it was still always about you're with this actor, hence. But the roles, and that's not, I can't blame it on anybody else. Those were the choices I was making. For me, I got into this industry, Smita, because I needed the money. And for me, this was a great paycheck. And, my family was going through tough times. I was really young when I got into it, but this was the best way for me to make that paycheck. And I did not get into it because I loved the craft or the acting. I didn't know it. I had never done plays or anything in school. So for me, I discovered and I fell in love with my job. And in fact, today I think I love my craft a lot more after so many years, because this was so new. I was learning on the job. So
But
I
in
know
those-
that I didn't get, it was the roles that I chose was also because, I need to keep busy. I need to pay the bills. I need this job. I need to have something on the floor. So sometimes when that happens, your your calendar is so full that when a great role comes, you don't have the time to take it. And sometimes you are also so new that the system around you is making you do certain things and take it on. And what you feel that, oh my God, this would be such an amazing role to do. And they're like, ये कौन सा नया actor है, ये मत करो, and this is not good enough for you. And you feel, यार ये लोग तो industry के हैं, maybe they know more.
know more.
So it's all a learning process. So I don't think I even chose some amazing roles that I should say that, I didn't get appreciation for it. It was not like there were some amazing roles that I had chosen. So I don't blame anybody for it. And I definitely don't blame for not getting great reviews, because you know what? I was learning on the job. If I was a producer, I would really be worried about signing me
all
on.
those who wrote, they said she was good at it. Now, if you weren't good, the producers wouldn't cast you opposite all these
I was very
big guys.
professional.
Okay.
Also, I think that in our industry, when you are that also you see
No nakras.
no nakras. You're
You'll
very
come on time
professional
and
about
you'll
it.
do
And
it.
at that point of time, everything was not. Today, things are so much more professional. I love it. But at that point of time, you people were not like, this is a job. It's my compartment, and I really treated it like that. And how much more professional can I get about it? So for me, the way to understand my job was reading about it. So on the sets also, I was reading directors, actors, biographies, and just to understand what is it I'm into, because for me that's the way I make sense of the world. And hence, when you look at it that way, for me, I was learning through this whole process. I was really not making the best of choices, so I don't blame people for not having the best reviews on it. I wouldn't give myself those reviews too.
In the social media space, people say that she was so beautiful, she was so fabulous. Why did she have those breaks? You did have those lamba breaks in between, right? Where you didn't act for 5
But that's
years, 6
because
years.
I turned into a mother. And I acted till literally I was doing a play with the Farooq Sheikh. We've lost him, but yeah.
Which play was this?
It was called Aapki Sonia. It was a sequel to Tumhari Amrita.
I've seen Tumhari Amrita.
Yeah, so this was a sequel to that, and I was pregnant at that point of time, and this was during my pregnancy, and literally at the end of it, I break down and stuff like that, and I remember that about 8 months pregnant at least, because we were sitting and doing it, I would do it, and then that when I would break down, the baby was giving me these kicks, and there was so much happening, and I'm like, am I scarring this child? I don't know what is happening. But yeah, so till then I did this, so I kept working till I was like literally delivered the child.
The breaks were
When I was bringing up the child, and I really felt that if I brought a child into this world, I needed to give it the time, and I enjoyed that tremendously. That was a role that I was playing, and I think I did take a break from fiction, but I was doing non-fiction, because non-fiction for me in my business or line of work is the closest going to a 9 to 5 job.
Okay.
Where I could, put in, okay, these 2 days I work and I come back and I could have a pattern. When you do fiction, then there are outdoors, you're into a role, you're playing a character, are you carrying it back with you? There were multiple things. I really couldn't do justice to it at that point of time. And by then, for me, I had also realized that if I do it, what I had done was not what I wanted to do in future where fiction was concerned. I just felt that I was just beginning to understand my craft, and I felt that I know I can do better, and for that I needed better roles also. So I said, you know what, let me focus on this right now and let's figure this out. So that's where the break happened.
Okay.
The second break that happened was I started with a show, and it was called Ajeeb Daasta Hai Ye. I started with it, and after that, while I was doing the cancer diagnosis came through, and then the healing process again. I was not
2018-ish, no?
2018-ish. Just about 2017 or something, I must have done it. I really got back into fiction, and I was listening to scripts, and I was literally on verge of okaying things that I would start shooting, and then this diagnosis happened. And I think, the thing about cancer is the treatment is so harsh, especially when you go through your regular chemotherapy and radiation and all of that. Those are so harsh, the treatment. Your body is just killed from inside, and just to heal from it and get back to doing the work that I do, our job is very physical.
Yeah.
Not just mental, but a very, very physical also. So there is no, I'm not up to it, but the set is standing, the dates are there. You have to go to work.
Okay.
You can't say, somebody else take over for me today. So I needed to really heal and then get back to it, which I have done now.
So you were not in India also. That was also a thing, right? You were abroad.
No, but I came back, and my healing process has been in India.
Okay.
I did do certain non-fiction again. And then after a certain period of time, when I knew physically I could take it, because you put in so many hours of every day working for 12 to 16 hours. See, when you're on set, your hour is a 16 to 18 hour day. It's very long hours. Now you have to be able to do that. I started with non-fiction again, because then it was like a 2-day, and then you could rest a bit. So, and then, of course, I got into fiction, 2 seasons of Broken News, and then, now some more things. This year, we should have some more things coming out.
So, did you do any, to come back to your book, did you do any reading when you were going through your cancer therapy and stuff?
Yes, my reading changed. Actually, it's a very funny story. I did a film called Hum Saath Saath Hain, which was directed by Surajji.
Yes, there were 25 different people in that also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember I used to, on set, when I used to have all these books, and Surajji had once said to me that, she would say, Sonali, you read very dark books.
Oh, okay.
And I looked at him and I said, yeah, okay, whatever. And he's saying, they're so dark, and, it's not good, you read
Typical
very dark
Bajatiya
books.
attitude, right?
It's very dark. And, so can you
Family
imagine?
values ki
I'm
kitabein
doing
padho.
Hum Saath Saath Hain, and here I'm reading these really dark books. I don't remember which book it was, but, maybe it was a Marcus, or it was a Nazibullah Inde, and, they could, or various other ones. And he would read the back of it and say, I said, Surajji, which one? He said, no, Chicken Soup for Soul and all of those, the happy books, they make you feel good. The thing is that when I was diagnosed with cancer and when I was reading, that line came to me, and I said, this is what he meant by it. I don't mean that particular book recommendation, but I understood what Surajji meant when he said you were reading such dark. Because when I read when I would read the books that I normally read on authors that I was normally reading, I was going down a rabbit hole, and it was very difficult to come out of that, so I understood that I needed to change. My book club members would tell me, it was a book called A Little Life. It's a very good written, very well written book, but so sad. And I remember my community telling me that we don't think you should be reading this, multiple comments about how this is not the time you should be reading this book. It's so sad. It's going to pull you down. And I could not finish it. And that's why in the book I write, that is the other thing I write about, that there's no shame in not completing a book.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove it to anybody that, oh, I've read this author just because they've won this award and that award. No, it doesn't matter. You might be reading an author who has won no award, but you know what? The award is that you're enjoying that book. And that's what matters. So I
Also
started
for
looking at
parents,
very different kind of books from there.
Also for parents, there's just going to page 64. There's this part about children who might have a challenge reading, whether the child is clinically diagnosed with dyslexia or not, but there might be resistance to reading which could be for various reasons. You don't need to get affected or obsessed about making them, forcibly pushing them to read. There are books which can be read even if they're not completing the books. There's also part 4, which is in 65, recommendation 4, that there's children with physical disabilities, and now we have books which you can read. So, and then there are people with cognitive disabilities. For them also, there are lots of recommendations here as to how to go about it if you're finding your children or your sibling finding this problem with various things. And it says that go back to the books that you read when you were a child. That's another thing which I found very interesting. I've done that. I've gone back to, sometimes I feel silly, I don't tell people, but I go back to an Enid Blyton or something like that. Not because of anything, but it's just that one day I see it lying in my shelf and say, utha leti hu. What is it? Because, it might be something that somebody was said that, oh, Enid Blyton was racist. Do you remember that period where it was said about her? So I said, okay, पढ़ के देखती हूँ यार, मेरे था कि नहीं, or
and what did you think?
I didn't find it. I didn't find it racist.
But also because we are all cancelling people so fast and so quickly, and we are so quick to judge.
Yeah.
But every period has its own, and that's the beauty about books. So I always say that it's not just the world that I'm traveling. See, for me, the beauty about reading was that I always say that was the cheapest way to travel for me. We came from very limited budget in our family. There were other needs that were there, so we didn't travel. But the books took me everywhere. They took me all over the world. And you know what I say? It's not just all over the world. They're taking me into past, into future. They're taking me on different planets, whatever that imagination is. But I'm traveling the universe with books, the fastest and the cheapest way to do it. So
But did you judge co-stars who had never read a book in their life properly, who were like, to the manner born, सब कुछ आराम से आ जाता है. You had to work for your living. You had to read to understand what it was to travel. They traveled when they were probably 10 or 9.
For people who have that advantage, there are different things that are disadvantageous for them. So there's always a pros and the cons to it. So there are certain challenges that I always feel that if you face challenges at the beginning of your life, you're young, you have a lot of way to, it's better than facing them later on. Because if you have not learned certain lessons in the early part of your life, you're definitely going to learn them later, and it's going to be harder to deal with them. So at that time, maybe when I was younger, I would feel, oh my God, somebody has it so easy. But then as you grow, you realize that, you know what, maybe it was better that way because I dealt with those then, and that made me stronger, and I could deal with certain things later.
So with whom did you vibe very well on the sets, like a male co-star and a female co-star? Who were the people that you vibed with?
So I never had problems with any of my co-stars. But today also, if I meet them, I could have who could I have a conversation with? I could easily have a conversation with Kajal, Ravina, Shilpa, Urmila when I meet up also. I mean...
all the 90s beauties.
Even Karishma, at that time on the sets, maybe not that much. Tabu, of course. I'm a fan of Tabus also. So, from Hum Saath Saath Hai, Neelam, so all my co-stars where the women are concerned, I'm very friendly with them today also. Sometimes we have grown friendlier later on after we've stopped working, but it's lovely, like, because if it is Karishma and Ravina, we have kids that are similar age group, and they connect, and So, but on the set, definitely I could have a conversation with most of my co-stars, like if they are thinking co-stars, which were Saif, Amir, Shah Rukh, Ajay Devgan. I did a lot of films with him. I could always have a conversation with them. I grew to like Salman later. I mean, it was a process. At the time of Hum Saath Saath Hai, I don't think we were.
But did you?
Let me put it mildly, we were not best of friends.
Okay, what happened? He's
it
very
is not
different personality, right?
He's a different kind of a person, and I've grown to appreciate that side of him later on, and there is that side to him. Also, everybody is different. I felt that he was kind of he I don't know if that's the right way to put it, and I'm not trying to be diplomatic. I just don't know how to explain it.
Okay.
But there are two sides to Salman, and you can either love him or you will hate him. And at that point of time, I was not fond of him when I was doing Hum Saath Saath Hai. I mean, I have had my close-ups that we are doing when he's standing behind the camera and making faces at me. But that was Salman. He's a prankster. He's like a child. Okay. But at that point of time, I was most offended that what is this behavior? And I'm not even going to talk to you, this behavior. But as I got to know him more and more, and you realize that he is like a child, and everything is to extremes,
Okay.
So if he's caring about you, he'll care about you to another extreme. And suddenly, for the same person who's making faces behind the camera is the same person who has made 2 trips maybe to New York, where I'm there to see if I'm being, and if I'm okay in my illness, and for the fact that he would call up and check with Goldie, my husband, and say, are you sure you've got the right doctors? I think you should get in touch with these doctors also. Sending the names that, okay, I know you've got her here, but maybe you should talk to these people also. Just being so invested in wanting to know that, is he doing it correctly? Where I felt that he took it as कि industry की हम ये जो industry के लोग हैं, this is a fraternity, and he suddenly turned into something like an elder person in the fraternity who was saying, are you sure you've touched all the bases, you've checked all the boxes, you've ticked them all? And then once he was convinced that we had done what is the best option at this point, he was calm about it. But to do that just showed how sensitive and caring he is. So I'm not trying to be politically correct. I've had my issues with him, but I've grown to understand that side of him.
Who's the other prankster in the industry?
See, Ajay Devgan, he's a huge prankster.
See, his personality is everybody.
He's very, because he's poker-faced.
Yeah, so nobody would know that he
is. Yeah.
So he does pranks on people.
Yeah, he does. But it's been a while since I've worked with all these actors.
Because one would think between Kajal and Ajay that Ajay is the quiet one and she's the prankster. Because she's like
he's more of a
garrulous.
prankster, but he does it quietly. And she's just
in your face talking. So you think कि वो बड़बड़ करती है और ये quiet है. नहीं, but
so I haven't worked with Kajal, but I have worked with Ajay, and that's how I know Kajal. And my first movie with Ajay was Dil Jale. That's where I met Kajal, and she was on the outdoor, and we were shooting for the thing, and that's where we hit it off. And
how was Sarfarosh like? Because when you were acting there, did you know at that time that it's going to become such a big thing?
No.
Yeah.
I used to also laugh and tell John that so in Sarfarosh, today we talk about Sarfarosh so much, but at that time and after Sarfarosh was released also, even though it did so well, I remember a lot of film journalists or reviewers or whatever you would call them at that time, it was quite mixed up, the whole thing, did say that, it was Amir's film, which it was, and that's not to be spoken about because there was barely a role in it. And I remember laughing with John always and saying, I'm the comic relief in the film, and but the fact is that Sarfarosh wouldn't be Sarfarosh, it would be a documentary if it was not for this human angle to it.
Yeah.
So today, but it's funny when you look back in retrospect, when you look back and you say at that point it was nothing. What I had done was literally, for all those people, it was nothing. so big deal in that sort of a zone.
But it's
and
such a relief
today
to have
it
you
is
there.
something that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by perceptions in the industry and the perceptions in outside.
Yeah.
What is the how liked are you in the industry is a totally different ball game from how liked are you.
It's quite interesting,
outside.
right? That
Yeah.
how the dichotomy in this two things. Acha, tell me all these, the Khans that you've acted. I just noticed you're taller than all of them, right?
Not really. I do. I'm wearing heels also. But yeah, and that was when John told me that I want you to audition, and I was like, I'd never heard of. I mean, we didn't audition at that point of time, and I had done ad films with John, and that's why John wanted me in this role. Because if you see, before Sarfarosh, it was more about how I looked, and that was what it was. And when John came to me with that role, and he was insisting on it that I want this girl, is because John had seen me on the sets of ad films where I was me, and there was a side to me that he had seen, and he said, I want this girl. And so he said that, I want something, I'll tell you the story. And John, being secretive, didn't want to tell the whole story. But he said, but it will be interesting. And I loved it. I had really enjoyed working with John on his ad films also. It was a great set to be on. So I was open to, I was like, okay, whatever you're working on, I'm happy to work on it. And he said, I want to audition. And I said, what do I do? I mean, you went for auditions when you did ad films. So I remember from college and all, one would go for auditions and you got that thing. So I said, John, because filmmakers at that time, directors didn't audition. But I thought that, John must be an ad filmmaker and he has used to it. So he's saying, John, you're still the ad filmmaker. You want an audition. And I said, okay, and we'll come. And then when we did it and realized that he just wanted me and Amir to stand together and see if when you shoot, how is it going to look? Is this pair going to look okay?
But why are people resistant to taller actresses and male actors should be?
I think we should ask the society that, no?
Did it matter to you or did it matter to the actors you think you acted with?
Not really, because it didn't matter to Amir. We were very much in this together, and look at the roles Sarfarosh has done really well. But I think it was more like, I don't think it's just about the height. It just depends on, is it portraying what you want this couple, what is the story that you want to portray, and is that falling into place? So I'm okay with that.
So you acted with Govinda and there was one more actor
Sunny
that I was
Deol.
saying, Sunny Deol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are a few years before these guys, like the three
Yes.
of them. They came in or almost the
Sort
same
of.
time, I think.
I think Shah Rukh was at the beginning at that point. I mean, I remember when we were shooting for English Babu Desi Mein, he was still shooting for Hamdil.
And he was doing TV at the same time.
What is the
Shah Rukh
film Dilwale Dulhania. He was
Dilwale.
still shooting for it. So Bazigar had just about released, and he was still
Not yet the phenomenon that he became.
yeah, he was still the actor and he was a thing, but he was not that at that point of time yet. Yeah. So other than that, all the others were very much my seniors. Yes.
They were much, I mean,
Yeah.
Govinda had also, I think, established
Yes,
himself by then.
totally. Yeah. Shah Rukh, Saif were still the newer versions. I mean, for me, Shilpa was a film older than me. Bazigar had released, and my first film when I was shooting for was Shilpa's second film. So most of the girls that we talk about were also had
You
been
came
there
from the
before me.
modeling world. Shilpa also came in, I think, from the modeling world, didn't she?
I don't know actually.
No,
I don't
okay.
know.
But
I
there
had
were
not
quite a few
really done
people.
ramp shows.
Huh.
When I started modeling was
Photo
the time when advertising changed and they started telling little stories.
Tell me about the Nirma story. Everybody
Oh my
remembers that.
So Nirma was a brand that I signed because I always felt that there was another brand which was really popular, which would sign on and so-called only the creme de la creme and those actresses, and that was the brand to be in, the soap brand, and everything worked around that. You got that brand, you got these awards, you got these certain things, and it was a done deal. That was the I didn't get that, and I thought I deserved it, but I didn't get it, and so I said, you know what, let it be. I was about to use the
That's okay.
yeah. I said, you know what, let it be. So what? I'll do another soap brand. And that's how I did Nirma. I really didn't expect Nirma to be what it was. But I must say that now when I look back at it, the fact that I didn't get that other brand, this other brand got created in that sense, you know, it
Yeah.
became the thing it was.
Because,
so I always say their loss.
Because it was, lots of PR companies will advise big stars that don't endorse a middle class product.
Okay.
Endorse a super luxury, even if it's a washing powder or a toothpaste.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. So if
But
you,
we didn't have PR companies at that point of time.
at that time it was like that. Today you'll find the biggest of big stars advertising for even a laxative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not naming, but
Yeah.
you're figuring out what
Yeah,
I'm talking about.
yeah.
Or a hair oil.
Yeah.
Can you imagine 20 years back, those same actors who were at their peak
Yeah.
going hair oil?
No, I had done all the hair oils and hair products and everything.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
Yeah, but
You
this
were
whole
quite
thing I'm telling you-
adventurous.
Yeah, but it was like this, you know. I had nothing. I was an outsider. Now that's the word that people use, but that is the fact. I was the outsider, and I was just carving. If this is not what I'm getting, but this is where I am. How do I do it then? You know. So it was not like I started doing it because I didn't have a choice, because that place was taken. There were places that were taken, so I was just creating new places for myself.
You also did language films. You
Yes.
went to Telugu, Tamil.
Yeah, another term that is so happening nowadays,
Now, huh.
Pan India star. But yeah,
How did
I
that
have
happen?
done
Just-
Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, and
You don't
I've
speak
done a
the
Marathi
language?
film. No, I don't.
I-
So I did films in all these languages. I did a film in Marathi also. Though Marathi is my mother tongue, because I'm a Maharashtrian, but I'm not brought up in Maharashtra.
Where were you brought up?
So my father was in the central government services. So I've traveled from Nepal to Chennai. I have traveled and lived all across the country.
Okay.
So I remember being more comfortable with English and Hindi than with Marathi. Marathi was something that was spoken at home, and wherever we were in whichever part of the thing. And if I said that, okay, like if I was in Bangalore and if I call the vegetable, if I would say the Kannada name for it, then you know.
Kanda, you'd say instead, because Marathi is Kanda.
No, I wouldn't. If I said pyaz, it would be okay.
If it
When
was
you're
in
talking
Bangalore,
in Marathi,
Nirudi, you would say.
something, you know, I'd various things. Or if I use that language, and even if I asked a question in Hindi, I was always given a reply in Marathi. And that's how I learnt the language. It was my parents' way of seeing that we learnt the mother tongue. And so for me, even today, I mean, I can speak the Marathi because, you know, if you didn't pronounce something well, it was pointed out and said, this is not the way you pronounce it.
Ah,
So
okay.
my pronunciation might be well, but I don't think in Marathi.
Marathi, okay.
And also what that did was it exposed me to this rich legacy of storytelling. And not just through Marathi literature and books, but because also my parents would listen to, you know, because when we traveled, for them, they were carrying their culture with them. So you had all these various tapes with there's this oral storytelling in a song form and all of that.
Yeah.
And that would be played at home. So you learnt all
Wow.
these stories because it was going on in the background. And you know, today when somebody speaks about something and you say, yeah, and I'm like, how? I have never read about, how did you know it? It was because it was being played and my parents were listening to it, or music that they were listening to. So again, like I said, words and language is just
But
so
it's like
beautiful.
when you wear that Marathi sari, the way you wear it,
Yeah.
I mean, nobody even guess. Like you're so typically Maharashtrian
But
when
the
you wear
genes
it.
are Maharashtrian, my parents are, and you know, so that's how they have passed the looks on, and that's how it is. So yeah.
What was it like when you met Goldie? You were very young. Did your
Yeah.
were your parents okay with that because he was not a Maharashtrian and he's
Yes.
like a Punjabi, right?
Yes.
Behel is a Punjabi.
He's Punjabi.
So was that okay? Were they okay with that
This is
initially?
a funny story. I met Goldie on the first film that I had signed, which was Naraz with Bhatt Saab. And Goldie lost his father when he was 15, and he was he'd completed the film that had happened, and you had to keep the production house going, which meant you had to work, and so Bhatt Saab was supposed to direct a film for his production house, and they were writing the script. So I was shooting with him on an outdoor, and he was there. That once we finished shooting, we would shoot for 8 hours, and then Bhatt Saab would sit with his writers and be working on the next project that he was supposed to do. And that's where I met Goldie and his sister Shrishti, and you know, so they would come on the set, and I was reading, and he would come and want to start a conversation, and I was like, who is this person and why is he so irritating? It started from there because I'm reading and he was constantly trying to have a conversation.
He was trying to hit on you
thank
even then.
Yeah, I was reading and I was like, yeah. But slowly, eventually I ended up doing the film, which was called Angare. And,
He was what, in AD at that time, or no?
He was,
Or he was producing?
because there was no option, you had to, that's how you ran the house.
That production house, I think,
Is Rose
the
Audiovisuals,
film-
which was started,
I
Rose
remember
Movies.
Kasme Wade was with that. That's
Yes.
how I remember. That's the only
Javani
thing I remember.
Divani, The Train,
Oh, that
Kasme
Ranbir
Wade.
Kapoor and
Yes.
Babita, right? Javani,
No,
Jaya Bhaduri.
Jayaji, yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember that film.
All
yeah.
the most fantastic music,
Huh.
yes, and
Yeah.
so that was the production house. But Goldie was 15 when they he lost his father suddenly, so it was quite a shock. And he was the male child in the Punjabi household,
Okay.
and he and his sister Shrishti were the elder ones in the family and had to take that over. So you just started working because that was
Yeah.
what it was. So that's the other side. When people talk about insiders and outsiders, it's really not so compartmentalized.
He was an insider, but he had to, start
Most
all over
insiders
again.
do, actually. They just have different kind of challenges.
Yeah.
They do. They have their own challenges. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I can
for me, I
imagine.
could see it as an outsider. I got married to the so-called insider, so I have I would say, a bird's eye view on the different aspects of it.
So it was love at first sight for him?
No,
or
no, maybe for him. I don't know. That you'll have
Not
to
for
ask
you?
him. No. But I was also not that kind of person who. I think life had been like that, and what you realized in life is that nothing. It's never so sudden. Whatever is quick and sudden goes away that fast also, and. I took my time on it because you need to know the person. And there was attraction, I'm sure, because you cannot deny that. We wouldn't be where we are today if that attraction wasn't there. But it was not some love at first sight. I would say there was attraction at first sight. Yeah, that would be the right way to put it. And then I did the movie. He had multiple actresses who had dropped out of the film and he was stuck, and then they came to me and I said yes to do it. And I was very friendly with Shrishti, his sister, and then I became friends with him. So with Goldie, it was, who is this person? Okay, attractive, something there, to, okay, we are working together, let's keep it professional. Oh, but while we are working, because the movies took so long to make, 2, 3, 3, 4 years you were shooting for the same film, so you're meeting, and then when you're not shooting, this was one set of group of people who you enjoyed hanging with also, so you became friends to best friends, to a point where he says that, we need to take it to the next level. And I'm saying, no, I have very few friends and I can't lose a friend.
Oh.
And I'm not going to take this chance. So I was like, I'm not going to do this because I cannot lose a friend. I have very few friends. That's something that happens with the childhood that I have had. I'm friendly, but I don't have friends because it takes very long. It's a lot of investment. And every 2 years, if you're in a new place and when you invest and when you leave, it hurts when you leave friends behind, and then you're literally like you're weeping.
So you make a shell around you.
Yes, you do. So it takes me very long to make friends. It really takes a long time. So for me, I was like, I have very few friends. I'm not doing this. No. So it took a little long time, and it took a lot of convincing from him that even if this doesn't work out, if we move to there and if it doesn't work, I promise you, the friendship will not suffer. I said, that's what all of you say. All the boys say this. It doesn't work like that. I've had the experience. It does not work like that. There is a male ego that comes into play. He says, I promise you. Do you see that in me? And I'm like, yeah. That's also true because I think Goldie has been surrounded by women and brought up by really opinionated women. So there is a way I love the way he deals with women. It's lovely. He can handle a strong woman, I must say.
Okay.
So yeah, and I love the fact that.
So how many years did you date?
For quite a few years. We must have been friends. So this is my first film. I got to know him from the time I started in the industry.
How
from
old were you?
before my first film even released. So yeah, I mean, he's younger than me. I would have been 18 or something, and he must have been like 16 or 15 or whatever. And we became friends from there. And then, there's so much that has happened,
How
and
come
we've continued
film
being in
magazines
touch.
didn't find out this gossip chal raha tha?
Because I don't think they thought they were more interested in making stories between the actors.
Okay.
And, it was not spicy enough because, a married actor and who goes on the set and, is having an affair is definitely a better headline than a sweet love story. So, yeah. And it
Oh.
was not a love story. We were friends.
Okay.
Then it turned into one. And, it was a process for us. Yeah.
So when did you tell your mom or dad, or did Goldie come and speak to them?
So when I told them about it, it was, I think, the thing that worked for my parents eventually, because as a friend he was coming home, and his sisters, so it was all a part. My sisters knew him, so he was very much a part of our lives. So it was not, he was a person that they liked, because he is that kind of a likable person, and
But they would have
they
thought
knew
that-
that he came from it was a good family. And like I said again, the fact that as a friend also, when we started dating each other also, Goldie was never he was not like, you can't do this now and you can't go to this party. He was like, okay babe, I will wait for you, and I'll meet you once you're done with that. It was not like I am going to follow you everywhere, and that was not there. And it was amazing to have a person with you who was not insecure, because when you were with a person who was so successful at that time that I was, and I was at the peak of my career when we started dating and all of that, and with the looks and the kind of attention that was given, you needed that man to be really secure. And that's what I found in him. And I said, yeah, I think I can spend more and more time with this person. And then it came to the point where you said that, you know what, I don't mind waking up next to this person for the rest of my life, because I like this. I can do this. So it was a process. It was not something that just happened.
I saw this interview.
But the question you asked for my
Parents.
what clinched it, that not the fact that the fact that he had been working and he was running and he was directing a film and etc., but the fact that he had written the song. So in his first movie, there's this song called Ye Hawaein Zulfon Mein Teri, and he had written the song. And my parents knew that because it was a conversation that was going on. And I remember my mother saying that, you know what, the fact that he has written a song, there's a certain sensitivity to him. I think ups and downs will happen, but he'll be okay. I think you guys will be okay. Yeah. That's what sold him to my mother.
And there were ups and downs in your life.
Of course, even till date.
Even when you were battling with cancer, he was right next to you.
Yes.
Left everything and
like for me, when I was dating him and we weren't yet married, and his first movie didn't do what it was supposed to do, and we've been through a couple of times where we've been oh my God, in film industry nowadays it's not so much, but at that time film industry was such where you did well or ghar bikne ki bari aa jati hai. It's always like that, because the way that industry was, the way the funding happens, that's how it was. You made a film by putting your house as a collateral. That's how it worked at that point of time. So yeah, there were times when a lot of my colleagues were like, this relationship ends now. It's not going to work the way it is because, what?
The film didn't do well.
Yeah, so we've been with each other through a lot of stuff, yes.
Yeah, because I saw this one interview which Anushka had done with Simi Grewal way back, in which they asked her about will you date this actor with whom she did her first movie, and today he's a big star and she's a star too. And she said, no, I won't date a star. So she said, why? Why would you date him? Because she said, we're all obsessed with ourselves. I'm a star or I'm an actor. I'm obsessed with myself. And that guy is obsessed about himself.
Yeah.
So we are like that.
That's a very interesting point of view, yes.
It can't mix because we'll be obsessed about ourselves.
Yeah.
And then, over the course of these interviews that I've been doing, I noticed that there are actors who are so consumed about themselves that I just wonder how do their relationships work in private life.
Yeah.
Because if everything is
In
about
our
how you look.
relationship, that would be me, no? Yes.
But he's younger than you also.
Yes.
And back in the day when you got married, which was like how many, 24 years ago,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
guessing. At that time,
22 years ago.
22
Yeah,
years
22
ago.
years ago.
They
Yeah.
must have wondered whether, a younger man.
But that was the fun part of it. Everybody who was around us knew we were together for so long. I never hid it.
Huh.
I like when I was doing my South film. I remember my first Telugu film that I did, and that was a film with Mahesh Babu. It was called Murari. He did really well, beautiful film, and all of that. And I remember when I would go there, I would be talking to Goldie, and I never hid the fact that I was dating him. I mean, I don't know why it was not written about so much, or I don't know that. It was not from my side. When I went on set, all my colleagues knew exactly who I was with and who I was dating and what was happening. Everybody knew it. It was never hidden. So for me, it was not like I did my work and this was my personal life. Maybe that is also my upbringing, because when I came back home, I come from a very middle class Maharashtrian family where you could be a star outside, but when you come home, make your bed, do your thing, this is the time. You had to do what you had to do at home. So I think for me, it was easier to compartmentalize.
Okay.
But having said that, as our relationship progressed, and once we got married and later also, considering, if you notice, I have never done anything with the Rose movies after Angare and after I
Why?
started dating him and after we married. But I did feel, like what you pointed out, I always felt that either we could work or the marriage would survive. And because it's a very creative line, it's a very intense line. There's a lot of pressures, and the hours are long, and are we going to get into, if I work with him and if he says something, how will I take it, and vice versa? Are we going to be mature enough to handle it? And I just felt that I don't think I was ready for that. And then now I tell Goldie that, dude, you've taken full advantage of it and you have nothing for me. You developed so many things. Why aren't you getting me
Why?
something,
Yeah.
But it's just become a habit and we've never really done anything together. Then it came to a point, now he says that, yeah, but now all these years we've not done something. Now if I do something with you, then it needs to be really special.
That where you are a judge, none of those are produced by your husband?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing which I wanted to always
I have one
ask.
thing that is produced by him now. Finally, we found something that is very, very special, and that's being produced by him, and that's my podcast.
Oh,
it's called the Happy Podcast,
Okay.
and I host it with my pet.
With your
Yeah,
pet. Okay, so
yes.
that's done by your husband.
Yes,
Okay.
so it's
Okay,
special.
so he's also involved in that because of the dogs
because-
and getting their own jointly.
Well,
where the two
I'll
of
tell you what, the point was that I was doing this Happy Podcast, and obviously it needed to be produced, and I was like, who is going to do it? I'm like, can the office
Can
just...
you do it?
Yes, so please, I need you guys to help me with this, because I was doing it, and I just need it, so I used their team too, and so they are producing it for me. That's it.
What about Money Matters? Like, you've acted with all these top guys.
Yeah.
They are the ones who pull in. And in those days, it was an Amir Khan movie. He pulled in the
Yeah.
audiences. So they got paid like double, triple the salaries that women got paid. Was that ever a point of contention when you were signing that, why am I being paid less than...
No, I was so grateful that I was being paid and I could make money. I came from that zone. But I would say that at that point of time, that was not the conversation, and that's why conversations are so important.
Correct.
Like when I say that having a conversation about the diagnosis, about the fact that when I speak about cancer and I say that early detection saves lives, these conversations is what everything doesn't change instantly. But today when I look at the girls, it's because there's a conversation that they know that, hey, I'm being paid less and why should I not? I understand my worth and I deserve this. I didn't even know that. I didn't know my self-worth because that was not the conversation. It was, this is how it is. And you were so busy working, you were so busy making your ends meet and getting that, thing, that there was really no time to think about it. But today, if you ask me, I would think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think about it today.
Yeah.
That time, okay, chalo.
Also,
it's
the
gone.
confidence is there today.
No,
which
the
you probably-
understanding that this is not justice.
I saw this interview with Tilotama recently, a podcast. She just mentioned that I like this car, that you'll never make that kind of money to have that car. And it really hurt her. So the next big offer that she got, she says, I was feeling terrible about it because I wanted that role, but I wanted to negotiate to make enough money to buy that car. So she says, yeah. So she negotiated, and somehow those guys agreed and they gave her that kind of money. And she bought the car, and she called up the producer and said, hey, I bought that car.
Amazing. Good on her.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
But
understand
that's
that,
the
I
thing.
understand that,
But
because
that,
we've
but to
had that
understand
told.
this self-worth, it's taken this journey to get there, to understand it. So while there are two things in this car story. I have a car story which I would love to share with you. But, before that, when we talk about self-worth as parents, in the various types of parenting, whenever I stood in front of the mirror, you were given a whack. Stop looking in the mirror. And anytime I would be given a compliment about how I look, my mother would say, but it's the inner beauty. This is going to go. I get it where my mother was coming from. She kept me grounded. But for the profession I came in, I just did not have the self-worth or understand my own value. And I felt that I undercharged so much because I didn't understand my worth. So in trying to give that's that fine line. So as a parent, where is the fine line where I want my child to be grounded, yet I want him to have the confidence to get what is his worth? That thin line is so difficult to come by. And
That's
that
true.
was the thing.
Because I don't remember our parents ever saying to us, oh, wow, that's so good.
And especially as girls.
As girls.
They just prepared you for a life. Though my mother, who had not gone out and worked and ran the house, always said that even if you marry the richest person in the world, I want my daughter to be working. You cannot get married unless you're earning your own money.
Me too.
And she said that tomorrow, if you don't want to do it, I would still not be happy. Even if that is the case, you should always be doing something. And even if it is a small amount, you should have your own amount that is financially, you should have something that is yours.
Amazing.
And that was the upbringing. And yet there was the other side where that is how the society was. And as a girl, there are certain things that you don't even understand. That's the conditioning that you're brought up with.
Yeah. And I think it must have, like, when people must have come and told you how beautiful you were, you must have thought that, kya?
Yeah, it was not like you... Because how do you decide that?
Yeah.
You didn't look at the mirror so much. There were not that many mirrors there.
Amazing.
And this was not something that
and
was...
yet I remember when Dakota had come and you were at that... you took her to a mandir.
Yeah.
And entire social media saying, Dakota kya cheez hai, apni Sonali.
No way, nobody said that.
101%
You're being very kind to
Sonali.
me.
I'm not. I'm telling you honestly. If I ask the guys out here, they'll also tell me the same thing out here. Is it... Okay, Naman is like, he's got this massive size admiration for you. I'm not going to say crush and make him feel all embarrassed and pink. But it's true. I think all social media was like, where is Dakota? And I'm a big Dakota fan.
Yeah.
So I was like, but
She's
both
so
of
pretty.
you...
And she's such a lovely person.
Really?
Yeah. But
Okay.
see, again, you never know what is coming on in life. I mean, it was my yoga teacher who tells me that, somebody is coming in and they want to be taken to a few temples. Will you do this? I'm like, okay, who is it? And that's how I get to know. So that's what I was doing, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think Chris and her wanted to have experienced the temples. And I think that's an experience everybody should have at some point. And so it was lovely.
Siddhivinayak? No.
With her... we did the earlier night before everybody got to know we had done Babulnath.
Okay.
And with Chris and her, and then the next day was the Siddhivinayak, yeah.
Okay, all right. But you've also done the Michael Jackson Tika thing, no?
Yeah, and I think...
How old were you? Yeah, you must have been 19 or
But
20.
I don't know why I did that. They told me that, you need to come and do that and be it. And somebody who got in touch with me, I can't even remember that. I think it was Sharmila, Raj's wife Sharmila, because Sharmila's mother and my Masis have been friends for a long time, and she said that, what you do it, and okay, I'm
The
going to be in
Thackeray
town.
family.
Yes, so she had, I think she got in touch and said that, and we said, okay, let's do it, and it was just about that. And I was like, okay, but then I want great tickets for the show and all of that with my friends. So I did it because I was getting these tickets to where I could take my friends and go to to the
To-
show.
to
My
Michael
sister,
Jackson.
my sister's friends, and all of that, and this whole bunch of us, and we had this great seating and all of that. That's what I was so excited about when I did it.
So I
That's
have
all
to
it
ask
was.
you that because that video went viral recently. I can't show it because we don't have the rights to it. But where you turned and looked at Raj, and then it went viral on social media. Ki ye 20 years ago he had a crush on Sonali and
Did
things
he?
like
I
yeah.
doubt it, but yeah.
When you turn, I think he was little hesitant, piche se, and you just it was a very
No, no,
innocuous
no, no,
video.
no, 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 no.
And
I'll
then
tell
it
you
went
what. Honestly, that when I spoke and I called, I was talking to my sister who was right there.
behind him.
Yeah.
But-
Not even behind him. Was it behind him? I don't know. But that was to my sister.
But there's no
who I was
gossip
telling her,
about you
just
now.
come.
So whenever there's
No, but
little
you know,
bit-
that's the thing about this. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people talk. I think it's just not in a very good taste when people talk about it like that. One, because first of all, I mean, you know, there are families involved and people involved and all of that. And second thing is that. I mean, it's something that till date I've not even bothered telling this, but because we just spoke about it before this, I will just give you. Other than the fact that my brother-in-law and my sister know my brother-in-law who's a cricketer and hence used to play cricket with Raj's cousin.
That's your sister's husband, brother-in-law.
Sister's husband,
Okay.
and they always played together. Secondly, my sister's mother-in-law was the head of department of he's taught us English literature in Ruya College, which I'm from, and so she knows Raj because Raj used to there was some sort of with his father Vasu Paranjpe, who was also so they all knew each other, and for me the connection was that Sharmila, Raj's wife, her mother and my Masis are best friends.
Okay.
Her mother has held me 10-day-old because you know how? My mother's younger sister, that Masi. So when she delivered, they've come all laughing. Oh, her elder sister's baby, let's go and see the baby. They've come to the hospital and seen me. So literally, that's the kind of connection. But I've always traveled around, so it's not something that I know them beyond a point because I came into to Maharashtra only once in 2 years during summer holidays or something like that.
Are you a political person?
No, not really.
Not
I
a
think you need a lot of very thick skin for it, and which I don't have.
Okay, but you are politically
And I'm not
aware.
politically correct. Unfortunately, I get very.
So there was this one interview of Goldie's years ago, which was done, and about when he talks about you. There were very few interviews actually when I was researching, in which he said we had political discussions and we agreed to disagree on some matters.
Yeah, we still do.
Keeps the spark alive, no?
That's true, but also just being able to discuss anything and everything, a topic.
Okay.
So, also in today's day and age, you know, to have a person whom you can talk to anything about is such a privilege because, you know, anything that you say can be misconstrued so easily. So to have this friend whom you live with and, you know, you can talk to about multiple topics. So it's not just politics, but about various things. Because I feel it's only when you talk about things that you can actually understand them. So, and everything has another point of view, and it's great to have different points of view.
You know, actors, I don't blame them at all. Let me make that clear. They hesitate in taking a stand because the blowback is so much. Kuch bhi kaho to you get into trouble, right?
Also, it's not just because of blowback, Smith. Sometimes it is also because it takes away from what needs to be the. You know, sometimes the attention needs to be in a direction, and that then gets taken away, and the reaction and the blowback becomes the topic, which shouldn't be the topic.
Yeah.
And that I feel is not fair.
Because you'll find many people saying, "Arey, you can make so much of a difference if you make a comment." I'm not talking about you, I'm saying generally.
I don't agree with that.
You don't? Okay.
You can make a difference. Like if I speak about my wellness journey or what I've been through in my journey of discovering myself as a person in my line of work, I can because I have some sort of a experience to it and I can talk about it. But I'm not a politician, I'm not the activist. I have to understand and especially when you, because you're somebody, you have a platform, then you must take that with utmost seriousness and be able to say things only when you're completely and truly aware of it and you understand 360 degree of that situation. You should never comment on it if you don't understand the situation or anything completely. So unless you have that kind of a knowledge about it, you should not be talking about it.
You know, I mean, today
that's
about,
what I feel.
You feel, sure.
Yeah.
You know about cancer because you've gone through that. You've gone
Not
through the
everything
healing.
about it because I'm
everything.
not a doctor.
Sorry. And you've done the podcast. It's about dogs, about
Yeah.
pets. So, in these two, one would think that you can talk intelligently because you know the experience of
So
it.
even in the podcast, there are like during COVID, and when everybody was at home, suddenly everybody adopted and got these puppies home, and then their lives started, and suddenly you didn't have time for those puppies. They are not toys.
Yeah.
How do you understand that? What is it that you have to give when you take it's a baby you're taking home,
Yeah.
and so what do
People
you
abandoned dogs.
abandon
Yeah.
them, and then that was one thing. Second thing was there was this multiple everybody now on social media is an expert on it, and there are so many voices. So the idea was to get this podcast, and I have all these various experts coming in who are talking about their points of view, and you try to make a sense of what is it actually that matters and what can work for you, what can't work for you. It's a conversation. Even
Yeah.
the podcast is a conversation.
But when we talked about dogs, there was this during COVID, people were abandoning dogs, and everybody was like, "Don't abandon your pets." But then the housing societies had this rule that you can't keep them. But some people went
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And I remember Menaka Gandhi called me up and she said that, "Will you please spread awareness that COVID doesn't transmit through dogs, so please don't abandon your dogs, and RWAs shouldn't throw the dogs out." So we did as much as we could, and maybe it made an impact. I don't know, but we all tried during that time that जो misinformation है
Yeah.
उसको तो दूर कर सकते हैं
Right.
through this,
But that's all we can do.
That's all, yeah.
That's the one thing that I learned through the thing that, we all keep aiming at the big things and the big result. And we say that because that result can't be achieved, I shouldn't do anything. What we don't realize is that the little things also matter. So it's the drops that matter more than the ocean.
On the stray dog issue also, I'm also divided on this. Being a dog lover, I don't know how to take the stand. Of course, I'm terrified when I go for a walk or something like that, and there are this bunch of dogs which come. I'm also scared.
Yeah.
And especially if I have a little child with me, I know for a fact what will happen. So you have to think in terms that you are guarding that child.
Yeah.
Your idea is to protect that child. So I am divided on that also, that I think something has to be done. It's really unfair, especially with laborers, who are working. They leave their child unattended on the roadside, and there are packs of dogs all over the place. These are complicated, complex
But
things.
it's not just with stray dogs. I think this human-animal conflict is a very big
Yeah.
thing. And I think we as human beings have been the ones who have created it. And so there is something that we need to do about it. And where stray dogs are concerned, also, I live in a city like Mumbai, where every open plot of land is being converted into a society and a building. But what happens to those dogs who have been living on that plot of land? And so more and more, like we explore that on the podcast also, where you get legal people in, and what are the laws that can be, animal welfare activists in, what is it that can be done, where should it not be mandatory for anybody who creates a society here to kind of find a little corner in your society, make that corner safe, see to it that the ones who are scared of dogs and the ones who want to take care of them have a little place. You feed them there, you neuter them, you vaccinate them, you put collars on them. They are great. They are your guard dogs also, and and yet there is a place where they are there. So then the moment the animal is looked after and is not hungry or ill, they are not going to attack. Then they understand this is their space. We have been given this space, and they're happy to coexist with you.
Yeah.
So we just need to find and understand this and make these laws in the societies.
Like I interviewed Hema Malini once, and there's monkey menace in her constituency. In Mathura, there's a huge problem with monkeys. And she said, you can call it monkey menace. And I, without thinking about it, I said monkey menace. Because people were complaining, that. And she said, how easily it comes to you, the term monkey menace.
Yeah.
It's humans who created that menace. So she said, plant more fruit trees. When they get fruit, they won't come for your fruit.
It's for hunger. They're hungry.
So there are solutions if we find solutions for
And
that.
because we are the human beings, we think we own the place, right? So then do it in that way. Understand that we are creating this conflict and deal with it in that way.
Did you lose friends as a result of the choices you made?
You lose friends because I don't know, those are not friends then, I suppose. But I would say that the fact that you don't, if somebody that you're friendly with doesn't like someone and says that, oh, this is what it is and you should not be hanging with them, I'm like, but that's not my experience with the person. So, hey, we needn't hang together, but I can hang separately with the person. And I realized that that's not something that's liked. It's all cliques. And, everybody is in some clique or the other. And
It's hard
that
to
was
make
not
friends,
me.
no?
I was never part of any one group in that sense. But yeah, having said that, but I had a friend in Goldie and his sister and all of that.
Abhishek Bachchan also I've seen
Is a
photographs.
very dear friend, yes.
Yeah.
He's Goldie's friend. And
He's-
yeah, but I did meet Abhishek on Major Saab, where he was the runner boy for us. He was the production person on that film.
Okay.
Yes.
He has also done, I mean, even though he was, born to a very privileged family, but he's also done these odd jobs in many other films. I've seen that he's before he made
well,
it.
for me, Abhishek is a brother to my husband. And
He was there at your wedding or something?
He's,
as well?
he is one of the most sensitive people I have ever met, and he's very sensitive. Yes.
Okay. And so you have kept your friendships in the industry separate from, from all these pulls and pressures, whether they are successful in their careers or not.
Or not, yeah. A friend is a friend. You can't, I mean, it's not true friendship if it depends on you or the other person being successful.
Because I've heard, and many people on the podcast have said, many actors who've come on the podcast have said that sometimes friendships in the industry are superficial. Your 3 films flop, and the same people who invite you to their parties and their dinners, they just fade away. They just
No, but that's
vaporize.
a fact of life. That is a fact of life. But I would say that how do you define friendship? So I would never call those friendships. Those are your colleagues. They are your social interactions, and you can be friendly with people. But a friend is who? A friend is someone who would be there for you, who you would be there for. And it doesn't matter if you have nothing to say. You could sit with a friend across and you could be reading and not talk for 2 hours, but you're friends. Because if you can sit in silence with the person, then you're friends with that person.
Lovely. So finally, a difficult question, but I would ask you to pick one book that you like to go back to again and again, and the one film which would define Sonali Bendre.
That film hasn't happened yet.
Lovely.
I do hope that in my second
People
inning now.
listen in, producers,
yes,
directors.
please do. In my second inning now, I do hope I can have that film at some point in my life, which I can say, yeah, this was the film. Or maybe I can spend my life keeping on working till the day you drop dead and saying, I'm looking for that film. That's also not a bad way to be. I don't mind that also. But book, I cannot say one book because there are different feelings. For me, books I've always associated with feelings. And when you're feeling something, that's the book you go to.
Okay.
So it could be The Folk of the Faraway Tree sometimes from my childhood, like literally babiness of it, and just to remember that. Or it can be Asimov, it can be Dune. There was a huge...
Not Asimov, really?
Yeah, Asimov at one point. But actually what has happened with Asimov is that we are living in the world that was described then. And yeah, so but I was I have always been a huge science fiction fan. So for me, I do go back to a lot of that.
I
and
can't.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean,
so.
I've done it. I've read it just because, okay, it's, like I said,
Yeah.
your bucket list or whatever,
Yeah.
somebody is recommended.
Yeah. I get that.
So
Yeah,
said-
yeah.
Lots of times you pick up a book and read it because it's part of your, at least for me, it's part
Yeah,
of my
and
work
then you
at
don't
times.
complete it.
I
And
don't,
that's happened to me, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel very guilty then.
Yeah, but that's why I wrote it in the book, that don't feel
Don't
guilty
feel
about
guilty.
not completing a book.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine. There's so many books to be read that, just move to the next one. But I would say that a lot of authors have had a huge hand in shaping me, and that could be, and those are authors like Isabella Allende and Toni Morrison, and then there is Pratibha Ray's Yajna For me, that was a life-altering book because, as a child, when you read Amar Chitra Katha, you read Upanishads, Chanda Mama, Tinkle, while you're reading the other stories also. When you read all kinds of things, then, it opens your mind to different stories. So there was a certain association with the stories from our past and our culture. And when I read Yajna appended everything that you thought of. It gave you a different point of view, because that Yajna is Mahabharat from Draupadi's point of view.
Yeah, like
And it-
Divakaruni's Draupadi. And once
yeah, but
I read,
Yajna was the
Original, yeah.
and I think it is a translation. I think original was written in Oriya, and so for me that, as I read it in my I was 18, 19, 20. I think it was really early. And it really made me rethink a lot of things and ask questions. And that's when those questions came in. That, when something happens to me, I don't even think this is happening, because I'm so used to it in my subconscious. I've been so conditioned to think that this is how it should be for me as a woman, that I didn't even think of it that it should not be like this. So it really got me thinking in a lot of ways. So that was a very, very important book in my life that I always remember top of my head.
but I love the optimism that you have. It's very infectious. So it's been great talking to you, Sonali. It's like I feel like I've known you for a long, long time, even though I haven't. I guess it happens with actors because you see their movies and you think, I know this person.
Yeah, but even I
Yes,
feel like I have known you for a long time.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being part of the podcast, and wish you all the best. And for readers and listeners, do buy this book. It's called A Book of Books. It's great reading. If you're a young parent, all the more so. But even if you're not, just to understand what reading means to you or should mean to you, do read. Pick up this book.
Thank you,
Thank
Smita.
you.
Thank you for
Thanks.
having
Thank
me.
you.
It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.